Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Selenic Stocks and welcome to this new video, a new analysis in which we are going to do an update on Coinbase. And I wanted to talk a little bit about 2026 for Coinbase, the higher time frame structure, and some recent relevant news, some developments surrounding the Clarity Act. But also Coinbase performance in 2025. And then based on that, wanted to do a full analysis and kind of an expectation for 2026, and generally whether I'm bullish on 2026 for Coinbase or bearish. And then I'll try to keep the video as short as I can, but it's been a while since we covered Coinbase, so we have to, I think, spend some time on it. So hopefully you can bear with me there. But we'll start off with the technicals, and then we'll talk about what I expect, right? Because technicals kind of, I always think, give you a framework. Okay, these are the different possibilities and these are the relevant levels. And then I think based on the fundamentals, you can understand and you can predict kind of what is most likely within that framework and within those areas. Now, if you look at the structure right here for Coinbase, I'd have to say that it is 100% bearish. You could argue that we have just fallen back into the same range as that we held for the majority of 2024. Up until June 2025, as you can see, the main range that we held back then was this range. So that's between the prices of 275 and 175. Right now we're trading at 186, so we're very close to support. And generally, we'll get to that a little bit more in depth later, but I do think that general support will be able to hold us. It's a strong support level, and right now we have already fallen from the top to the bottom with Coinbase. We've already fallen a total of, more than 52% from the highs that we made right here in July 2025, when obviously the markets were quite nice. We've fallen down 58%, and we have seen some support in the meanwhile, but basically since the end of October we haven't. So strong support level. I do expect some local support there, but the thing is that when we're talking about Coinbase fundamentally, I cannot be very excited, okay? And it has to do with three things. First of all, the financial data. Now, Coinbase has earnings coming out at the end of, or next week, I believe. So not this week, but next week. But analyst estimates for 2025 are not great. Revenue does seem to be growing. However, their EBITDA or their net income is actually decreasing. Their net income, as how it's expected, at least last year, so 2024, 2 years ago, whatever you want to call it, was $2.58 billion, I believe. And for 2025, the estimate is $2.1 billion, so that's a decrease of minus 18.5%, even though the revenue has grown. Right, so that means that costs are growing even more compared to the revenue. I don't necessarily like what they're doing with Base either, right? So that's their layer 2 network that they're building themselves. So that's the first thing that I don't necessarily like. Now, outside of that, obviously, hopefully soon we will have the Clarity Act being passed. And that potentially has some bad effects for Coinbase as well, especially when it comes to stablecoin yield. At this point of time, stablecoin yield, or at least a percentage of that, is quite a large, or at least it's quite a lot of money that Coinbase makes per year, is coming out of that. And with the Clarity Act, they want to decrease that and potentially even ban that outright, right? Yield on stablecoins for US customers. So that is potentially bearish. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of tension and quite a lot of controversial things around the Clarity Act, such as Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, of course, calling Brian Armstrong of Coinbase full of shit. There goes the monetization, but okay. So that's already true, and that could be an extra pressure on net earnings that have already decreased significantly. And then outside of that, I think in 2025, and that's also a part of where those costs come from, they've made some massive acquisitions. And I think a lot of those acquisitions, when I'm talking about and when I'm looking at the crypto markets in 2026 and potentially even 2027, I'm not sure if those are going to work out well. I think they're at least very risky. So if you combine that with my generally bearish thoughts on the crypto markets, with the structure we're seeing for Coinbase now, I would say that at these prices, even though I do think we can find some temporary support, and I think Bitcoin is bottoming out relatively soon, so I do think we can do something like this. But we need to see a drastic change in the business of Coinbase or in the crypto markets if we want to prevent something like this. And at this point of time, I do not anticipate a drastic change like that. So even though I do expect, or I can see us getting some support here locally and potentially even some stability, some bullish momentum for 2026, I think we're going to drop down lower. And then once we start getting into levels like 120, or potentially even the same levels as the end of 2023, so then we're talking about $80, maybe $100, then it gets more interesting. But at this point of time, I am, for fundamental reasons, but also for technical reasons, not interested in Coinbase. And well, I told you why not. And at the end, it's your own decision, and you have to make your own analysis and your own deliberations as well about whether you want to buy Coinbase or not. But that's at least what I think you need to know about it. So if you do have any questions, let me know as well. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.